This short presentation will guide you on how to read your Better Buying Purchasing Practices Index company report. It'll also answer some of the common questions we get asked by our subscribers to help them make decisions around what they should focus on to drive improvements in their purchasing practices. When you get your company report, you'll receive two files. There's the main report with question-by-question findings from your suppliers, and also a one-pager that shows the scorecard. If you requested any data breakouts, you'll also see a chart showing your purchasing practices scores by breakout. So let's talk you through a sample company report. If you're a repeat subscriber, this will be very familiar to you, but if you're new to Better Buying, it may be the first time you've seen one of these. When you open your company report, the first thing you'll see is the cover sheet. This includes the scorecard summarising how you've performed, both overall and in each of the 7 categories, in comparison to the industry benchmark and the buyer type benchmark. If you received a report last year, you'll also see a comparison to your last cycle's scores. Right now, we have 5 industry benchmarks, each of which represents the average of all submitted ratings. The overall benchmark has all the ratings for this cycle. The soft goods benchmark is all textile-related ratings, such as apparel, footwear, and household textiles. The hard goods benchmark is all non-textile ratings, including products such as toys, electronics, home appliances, stationery items, and pet products. We also have the sporting goods benchmark, which includes all sportswear as well as sporting equipment, and a home goods benchmark, which includes products such as household textiles, indoor and outdoor furniture, decorative items, lighting, and kitchenware. Let's look at this company's scorecard in more detail. It's for a buyer primarily selling soft goods products within the apparel, footwear, or household textiles category, so it's compared against the soft goods industry benchmark, which is the grey diamond. It's also compared against the buyer type benchmark, the blue cross, which is based on your business model and how you sell to the end customer. In this case, it's apparel, accessories, and luxury goods retailers. You'll have indicated your buyer type when you filled out the subscriber information form. The scores of test company PQR from the last cycle are indicated by the orange diamond. If you hover your cursor over each marker, you'll see the score points. For example, the overall score of test company PQR is 67, as shown in the screenshot next to the blue bar on the right. The N number at the top of the scorecard represents the number of unique suppliers who submitted ratings, in this case 498 ratings. The company's overall score is 3 stars out of a total of 5 stars. They're doing well in management of the purchasing process with 5 stars and a score of 92, but they're doing poorly in sourcing and order placement, where they score just 28 and don't even get a star, and in planning and forecasting, where they get just 2 stars. The vertical grey bar in the middle of the scorecard shows the score points, which range from 0 to 100. A grading formula is applied to convert scores into stars. Less than 36 points equates to 0 stars, which is why the test company scored 0 stars in sourcing and order placement, even though it scored 28 points in this category. A detailed explanation of our methodology is available in the Research and Tools section on the Better Buying website. If you look to the right of the scorecard, you get the context to those scores. You can see that not only did this company score high for management of the purchasing process, as shown by the green bar, which is this year's score, they've actually scored higher than last year, which is the orange diamond. You can also see that for sourcing and order placement, where the test company failed to get a star, it managed to do better than apparel, accessories and luxury goods, the blue cross, and the industry as a whole, the grey diamond. The company scorecard is a really useful tool. It's a snapshot of how you're performing compared to the rest of the industry. It highlights in a top-line way where you need to focus your efforts in order to improve. Lower scoring categories, or categories where you scored below the benchmark, could be a good starting point to give relief to suppliers that may be heavily pressured by those practices. Many of Better Buying's subscribers use this scorecard to kickstart discussions internally within the business about the need to prioritise purchasing practices across the company. In cases where your company wants to involve all employees, you might choose to focus on several categories, even ones where you scored higher, that resonate most with functional areas of your business. If you requested data breakouts as part of your reporting options, the cover sheet of your company report will also show a breakouts chart. This chart compares scores received from different groups of suppliers on each of the 7 categories of purchasing practices against the overall score received by the company. In this case, the company has asked for breakouts by product category. You can request breakouts when you subscribe to the rating cycle. As well as product categories, you might want to consider breakouts by supplier type, such as strategic and non-strategic suppliers, or by different regions or brands. The cover sheet of your company report also shows priorities for improvement and best practices. This is a separate question at the end of the questionnaire and captures which category the largest % of your suppliers selected as the one you should focus on improving first. As you move through the report, you'll also see hyperlinked text. If you click on these links, they'll take you to the relevant section in your company report. In this case, the Comments and Best Practices tab, showing open-ended comments provided by your suppliers. After the scorecard, the first tab of your company report takes you to recommendations. This is a summary of how your company has performed, along with customised recommendations from Better Buying. This includes the priority categories where you lag and points where you could improve, such as quick wins based on the high-impact questions. This section also highlights some overall quick wins across other categories, as well as any feedback from Better Buying ambassadors. Next comes a series of worksheets, one for each of the 7 categories of purchasing practices. This is where you get the specific details of how your company is performing in each category. This one is for planning and forecasting. These worksheets present data for every question asked in this category and again include comparisons with the industry benchmark. As we've highlighted here, the industry benchmark charts in the grey colour scheme are shown to the right of your company's charts. If you look at the top right of the worksheet, you'll see that this company is doing average in planning and forecasting, scoring 62 out of 100. This is higher than the soft goods benchmark, but lower than the buyer type benchmark. But look at the orange diamond, which shows where they were last year. This company has improved its score since the last rating cycle. As you go through your company report, pay particular attention to high-impact questions. You can identify high-impact questions because the question has a navy blue background. There's a red line around the chart area, and the chart background is green. High-impact questions measure practices that have a high impact on a supplier's business and their ability to provide good working conditions. These questions are weighted more heavily than other questions. A note at the bottom of each worksheet tab explains what high-impact questions are and how to locate them per category. This slide shows one high-impact question from the planning and forecasting category. Here we're looking at how many days in advance of order placement were forecasts provided to the suppliers by the company being rated. The green bars show the % of suppliers reporting the number of days in advance, compared against the % of suppliers in the soft goods benchmark, which are indicated by the grey bars. For example, 15.8% of suppliers of test company PQR reported forecasts were provided 180 days or more in advance of production, compared to 13.1% of all ratings within the soft goods benchmark. However, 21.4% of suppliers received forecasts just 30 to 59 days in advance. Providing forecasts further in advance enables suppliers to stage raw materials, get their production lines worked out, and make sure they have the capacity to fulfill an order, rather than having to scrabble around at the last minute and potentially not be able to fulfill the order in time or in a facility you've approved. Right above the chart, you'll see a comment that describes the impact of the practices on your suppliers and often points towards a goal level of performance on the practice in question. This company should probably continue to work on improvements in planning and forecasting, making efforts to get more suppliers' forecasts further in advance. A goal might be to increase the percentage of suppliers receiving forecasts at least 120 days in advance. Some subscribers ask for breakouts of data in ways that are meaningful for them. This company has asked for breakouts by product category, so they can compare their apparel purchasing practices with their accessories purchasing practices. Here we look at the percentage of suppliers reporting about test company PQR's forecasting accuracy, which is part of the planning and forecasting category. In this example, 31.7% of all suppliers indicated that the variation between the actual purchase order quantity and the capacity that test company PQR reserved with them was 10% or less. When we dig deeper into the two groups of suppliers, apparel and accessories, we see a big difference in the percentage of suppliers reporting a variation as low as 10% or less. Here, 29.3% of apparel suppliers, that's the chart with the red header, reported a variation of 10% or less between capacity reserved and order placed. In contrast, 44.4% of accessories suppliers, depicted in the chart with the blue header, reported this level of variation. Findings on different breakouts help companies to understand how particular groups are impacted differently by their purchasing practices. Here's an example of another type of chart you'll see in the company report. This is a simple doughnut chart, which shows the percentage of suppliers reporting whether the time and action calendars they received from their customers provided enough time for all processes. This is critical because if suppliers don't start with enough time, they'll struggle to fulfill orders without having to resort to overtime or subcontracting, both of which create health and safety risks for workers. This company is doing better than the soft goods benchmark, with 95.6% of suppliers saying the time and action calendars they receive provide enough time. That's better than the benchmark, shown by the grey donut, where the percentage is 92.6. Let's look a bit closer at how this company's doing in relation to management of the purchasing process. Here we look at whether it met the deadlines for key milestones. This is a big issue for suppliers, since every deadline missed increases the chance that a supplier won't have enough time to complete the order or enough workers without resorting to subcontracting and excessive overtime. Look at the grey box on the left. 61.4% of suppliers report that this company missed no deadlines. While that doesn't sound too bad, it's marginally worse than the industry benchmark of 61.7%, but it also means that about 40% of suppliers are reporting that deadlines are missed. Now look at the boxes on the right. Each green box represents a deadline missed, and the bigger the box, the more frequently the issue was reported by suppliers. So if you look at the light green box in the middle of the left-hand side, 11.6% said deadlines for comments on fit samples and prototypes weren't met. Below that, you'll see 10.2% of suppliers reported missed deadlines to release purchase orders. You'll also see a cluster of smaller boxes around the bottom right, where only 3 or 4% of suppliers reported deadlines being missed. So this company isn't doing too badly in relation to quality testing approvals, approving size sets, ordering salesman sample materials, and approving wash and finishing samples. To improve its performance, it should work to increase its adherence to time and action calendar deadlines. For an overview of how the data was collected, turn to the Supplier Sheet tab in your company report. Here you'll find information indicating the duration of the rating cycle and the number of suppliers invited versus the number of suppliers who actually submitted ratings. It also provides an overview of the total number of ratings that make up the industry benchmark. Aggregated information is also included about the suppliers who took part in the rating cycle. This includes the number of countries where they're headquartered, the percent of factory owners, the total number of workers during high and low seasons, the average length of the business relationship, and the total order volume across all participating suppliers. Finally, we come back to the Priorities for Improvement tab mentioned earlier. This shows the priority areas where you should make efforts to improve, as indicated by the largest percent of your participating suppliers. If breakouts have been requested, this part of the report will show if a particular group of suppliers suggests different purchasing practices should be prioritised. We hope this has given you more clarity on how to read and understand the data in your Better Buying Company report and how to use this information to help you decide what to focus on to drive improvements in your purchasing practices. But if you have any further questions, do let us know. We're always happy to help.